everyone, welcome back to On the Fly. Today we'll be taking a look at semi-final action from the Women's World Championship currently happening out in Denmark. Jumping right on into it with the scores from today's games. We're going to start with the first semi-final between the U.S. and the Czechs. This game, U.S. dominated start to finish, collecting a score of 10-1. And when you look at this, I mean, yes, it is obviously a big score. But when you look at the Czechs and what they typically do, it wasn't the worst tournament for them. If I'm looking at a tournament-wide perspective, finally getting past the quarterfinals is huge for the Czechs, and I think really when they start to and they play in that bronze medal game against the Swiss, I think they probably have a pretty good shot at winning, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them collect their first ever medal at this tournament. And really, just seeing a Group B team in the playoffs, in that sort of medal hunt, is definitely huge for women's hockey. And I am curious to see whether or not they can pull off an upset beating the Swiss tomorrow. Who knows if they can. Hopefully they can. I think it's going to be a good game between the two. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go to overtime or a shootout, although it can't be a shootout because of the new rules. But we'll be interested to see whether that game goes into overtime, because I think there are two evenly matched teams that play similar styles of collapsing games. And I think when you really look at it, the Czechs actually have a little bit of a shot against the Swiss, whereas they're not going to have as much a shot against the U.S. or Canada. They've already beat the Finns, and the Finns have beat the Swiss. So if we're looking at that big circle, I mean, hey, it might happen. Moving on to the second semifinal of the day, we got Canada playing the Swiss, 8-1. This is yet another game where two teams that really aren't on equal level. We've seen this in every tournament so far with Canada, U.S. dominating. Typically the team that plays the other team, the Swiss and the Finns, will be in that sort of semifinal action. Unfortunately this year for the Finns, they didn't even make it to the semis, getting knocked out by the Czechs. So for the first time, we saw the Swiss playing Canada. Typically, the Swiss would play Canada, but Canada would be the top seed. This year, being the second seed, they play the Swiss yet again, and just couldn't get it done in terms of the Swiss. And really in this game, just domination. Shots were something along the lines of 56-6 for Canada, and when you have that few shots, you're not going to beat a team like Canada. And it's just unfortunate for the Swiss to be having that sort of matchup and having to play Canada in this tournament and just not having the same sort of level of skill compared to some of these top powerhouse nations. But yeah, so that is the two semifinals. Canada and the U.S. will play each other in the gold tomorrow, and you have the Czechs playing the Swiss in the bronze. But one thing I did say yesterday, if I could find footage, I would cover it, and sure enough I did. So Finland beating Hungary 3-2 in overtime. This is to determine 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th place. So you have Finland beating Hungary 3-2 in overtime. This game, Finland, despite the score, did dominate through the entire game. Hungary was lucky to stay alive, and sure enough, they pushed it to overtime, but couldn't get it done in overtime. So Finland with the 3-2 victory, and that'll move them on to the 5th place game tomorrow, as well as Japan beating Sweden 5-4. This game, Japan went down early, battled back, scored 3 in the second, and Sweden scored 3 in the first, 3 in the second for Japan. And then Japan put the one, Sweden put out the other, and then Japan put in the final goal with 2 minutes left. And in this game, really, in my opinion, Sweden looked like the better team, but at the end of the day, all that matters is what's left on the scoreboard at the end of zeros. So with that, Japan will play Finland tomorrow for the 5th place game. That game will take place at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bronze medal game at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time between the Swiss and the Czechs. And Canada, USA coming up at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That game, I think, is going to be an interesting game, to say the least. I would not be surprised to see the U.S. win this year. I'm not as confident going into it as, say, the Olympic years I have been. But with that being said, Canada, never count them out. They did lose the first game of the season series. It's going to be interesting to see if they can win. I don't know if I'd consider them the favorites this year. The U.S. has looked very good. But we will see coming up tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As for the current rankings, 7-8 for Sweden, Hungary, and then 9-10 for Germany and Denmark being relegated. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like to consider subscribing, tell all your friends and comment down below your thoughts on semifinal action of the Women's World Championship. Until next time, see ya.